G'day friends and fans, and welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 17th of November 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood Arcade, Power Games, Into the Elsbound, and Erotic Tales from the Empire. Part 1 out now, Part 2 coming soon. Thank you to all those who support the channel. You can support the channel through the links in the link tree, primarily through my Patreon and buying my books. Now, Ukraine has suffered several setbacks. Of course, there's a crisis of confidence in the Zelensky government, given the level of corruption. And as you know, this is not new and has, of course, led to America. And the lack of cooperation has led to America withdrawing all but crucial aid. It's believed that some aid is still going. They still sell arms to Ukraine, but as long as it's paid for. There are many concerns about Ukraine's growing debt and hidden debt. That is, foreign Ukrainian companies borrowing money and as acting as proxies of the government, and then ceasing operations to avoid their responsibilities, though these are far and few between. Mostly, however, it's battlefield losses that have the most concern. With, of course, one of their longest running brigades, the 57th, called a Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade. Now, whether or not you follow Ukraine war, you have to admit the loss of one of their key brigades in southern Donetsk is a huge setback. Now, what gets me is that Ukraine isn't reporting this, and they're saying that it's Russian sources. However, I got this story from India first, and it was reported in India as battlefield observers noted that, and according to India, most of them were lost trying to surrender to Russia and came under fire from their own people. Now, the Indian article is translated poorly, and it's the only one, so there's no confirmation on that. But there is confirmation in Russia of taking prisoners, but they didn't say how many. Ukraine has admitted to battlefield losses, but they say they're minimal. So there is a lot of misinformation out there, but there's a lot of there is actually a Ukrainian story here that says that only goes back to May 24th. Now, this brigade has been suffering losses since then. They've been holding since then, but Ukraine's have just basically lamented yesterday that the 57th has ceased operations, which is, again, they're not saying they're dead or surrendered or anything. They're just ceased operations, missing in actions. But that's not the only one. There was an explosion today in Poland, despite warnings from Russia about a false flag event, which was dismissed by the French and others as Russian disinformation. Times of India has clearly outlined that it was a false flag event, but they're the only ones outside of Russia doing so. But of course, Donald Tusk hasn't named anybody yet, only just saying a railway track was destroyed by an explosive device. Again, we have seen false flags before. We have seen Ukraine fire air defense missiles that landed in Poland, not once, not twice, but thrice. We have seen stories disappear of Ukrainians being arrested in Poland for making trouble. We've seen stories disappear of Poland trying to expel Ukrainians. You Polish farmers attacking shipments of arms, saying that it's robbing them of badly needed resources for infrastructure. We've seen Poland farmers again attacking Ukrainian shipments of grain, saying they're substandard and eroding the price of grain, making it unprofitable. We've seen a lot of tension in Europe simply because the parasites, I meant bureaucrats, no, they're parasites in Brussels who don't listen to the people, who only listen to the money men and never weigh the balance between the two. Right? Companies need to make a profit, but the people need to make a living. The Ukrainian war is basically an attempt to drag us into war so the bureaucrats can bail themselves out of trouble by destroying lots of capital. Destroy the excess capital, return the people to poverty, crush the wages. Now, Russia has attacked Kharkiv. Now, again, right? They're saying only 3 people were killed. Yet, according to India, the 57th in Kharkiv has suffered the loss of their final combat-ready battalion. Make of that what you will, but there is attempted drone strikes all across Russia. Ukraine claimed success. One of these two. Which one? One of these they claimed success. Yeah. Claims, yeah. Drone strikes on, again, that explosion. It's about the size of a tree. So that's not much of a... That's a long-range drone strike. But what did they trade for it? An entire brigade. And ports in Odessa. Although they're claiming air defences worked. Well, if air defences... Yeah, they always do. But here we go. Drone strikes on Kharkiv. Not much else fighting. That's actually an old story. 2 days ago, there was a Ukrainian attack on Belgrade. Now, there is fighting here in the northern corner. Fighting in Kupiansk. Up in this corner. And the Russians are trying to come down this road into Yevleliv. I know I'm pronouncing them wrong. Fighting here. Now, there's renewed fighting, but no, not renewed fighting, continued fighting. Now, Russian drones have taken out critical infrastructure, particularly power lines in Balak and Izum. Now, fighting here has not resulted in Russian advances, but they have attacked Seversk on multiple fronts. Renewed fighting in and around Chasiv for no results. Renewed fighting south of Konsk. A break in fighting in Konsk. Fighting here in Battle Group Center on multiple locations. With the Russians pushing further up into Ravine. Though they're still clearing out the Ukrainians who are trapped in POK. The Ukrainians are still managing to sneak supplies through overland into the city as the Russians have not completely annihilated the forces there. So there's very little advances on the map, but there are some. Russia's taken a huge chunk out of Ukraine here. They've bitten off a little bits here and there. They've bitten off a big chunk here as they advance on Hulu. The siege of Hulu has begun. They're on the outskirts of Hulu, within artillery range, firing medium and long-range artillery into the town. They've taken satellite areas. They've also taken areas south of Kiev. Now, this is a big... So, of course, the Ukrainians' favourite target is to attack the civilians in Donetsk in retaliation for giving Kiev the middle finger. So, whenever the media report 3 people killed, you know they're not reporting battlefield losses. They are complying with Ukrainian security regulations, and that is not to admit to any battlefield losses. Now, Zelensky looks like a deer caught in a headlight, and Macron does also. Don't know the context of why they look so surprised. Maybe the reporters have asked the forbidden question: what's happening with the situation? Give us a situation report or something like that. Not allowed to ask the Zelensky battlefield questions. They won't tell you about their losses. They probably won't ask him about anything really. But 7 hours ago, Zelensky's going for an historic aviation accord. More jets, more air defences, more missiles. And, I see, he was questioned on how this assistance is going to be financed. And it's, of course, yeah, you're paying the bill. He's not going to say it out loud, is he? This is the thing. He's a thief. War is theft. Okay? It steals from the people. It steals your life. It steals your prosperity. And it only cloaks the generals in glory. Of course, winning generals. But as he was holding talks in France, Russian drones and missiles have reshaped the battlefield with ground advances by Russia in the Zaporozhye region. As I've reported, finally the Western media is reporting Russian advances. Zelensky is shocked because my guess is he didn't know. Macron probably didn't know. They're probably so out of touch. But yeah, allegedly Russian forces have liberated 2 towns, though a little bit more than that. They've taken a huge chunk, but most of it is, I would say, equal to two towns. It's not major, but it's still puts the Russians at the advantage and the Ukrainians at the disadvantage, as they now have to reorganize their defenses. Now, you're wondering why, you're hearing reports around the world of countries stepping up production, that there's been outages at key plants in Asia and Africa because millions of barrels of diesel and gasoline that has not made it to market because of Ukraine's war, and is driving price hikes across the world, particularly in parts of the US, because of the knock-on effect where countries order gas and oil like 3 to 6 months ahead of time. So if they don't come in time, they're going to pay emergency supplies. And this is where UAE and countries make their money, particularly India, selling off their huge reserves because they can afford them, because they're all state subsidized, right? Well, actually, India's almost subsidized by the world. So was China for a while. India's turn is next. They're going to suffer their catastrophic fail too. Another beneficiary has been Turkey, who's had a 100% increase in sales, driving an oil boom in Turkey. And, of course, Ukraine is paying the price because now they have to buy gas and oil more expensive, which will further erode their economy. So Ukraine is killing itself at the pump because of its gas fuel crisis, but it doesn't have a fuel crisis because the people, it's Europe who pays the price. Well, at least the American taxpayers for now aren't paying the price, but Democrats, when they get their greedy little mitts on it, just want to drive everything up all the time. Why? Because they want to collapse everything so that they can pick up the pieces and come in and say, capitalism is broken. You broke it with your wars, Obama, Biden. Ukraine has admitted through Finland that there's going to be no ceasefire this year. Finland doesn't want ceasefire. They told that the peace Kiev has abandoned the peace talks. Why? Because there's no progress. But of course, at the same time, they call on more financial support for Ukraine, more military equipment, more give me. As long as you give, they will not stop making war because they don't suffer the consequences of war. Until Zelensky has a gun to his head and says, you lose this, you die. Until politicians face the reality that if they go to war and lose, they will die, it will not stop war. Okay, they don't care that you die. In some ways, it is a psychological shield, because if they cared, they'd go insane with all the statistics every day of every death, would just drive them insane. But there is zero compassion. Okay? All these people who claim to be empathetic online, they're toxic. They claim to be empathetic and then support Ukraine killing itself. Killing its citizens. In a pathetic grab for glory. Then claiming there's obviously no price for corruption, yet Zelensky doesn't pay the price. Until you the left never holds their side to account. Now, there's been photos of a anti-Zelensky protest in Kiev. Unfortunately, it wasn't very big and it was broken up very quickly. Most of them were outraged that, once again, where's the accountability? You know, once again, Zelensky skates on thin ice and makes it to the other side. How many times do you have to be told, despite its military gains, Russia says it prefers a diplomatic solution, but the West says they're quite proud out loud. They want to finish Russia as a great power because it threatens their security. No, it triggers your paranoia. Those who talk of globalism first want to destroy the globe so that every country's weak. Because so that way you can't resist. That the people will walk around staring at their toes for the rest of their lives. that the proles will just stare at the screen and watch their porn and football. That they won't engage in families or relationships, that they will line up for the few women that remain in alleyways. You have no idea what they plan, because most people out there don't want to know. They tune out. They live in such fear of the truth. But the truth is spreading the truth, bringing sunlight. We're living in an era where the British government openly says, if you criticise Keir Starmer, we'll find a way to jail you. They're now trying to find a way to jail you for criticising Islam. They're trying to jail you for anything they consider Nazi. But Marxism has killed over 100 million people. And but because Marxism is entrenched in the West, it gets a pass for its past crimes. But anybody on the right has to constantly bear the cross of the Nazis. But the Nazis weren't right-wing, they were left-wing. You've been hoodwinked by the socialists and their constant droning. Never take history lessons from the socialists. They'll never tell you the truth. Heck, of Britain wanting to remove Tiananmen Square from the incident books as criticism of China. But when told that there might be a war coming soon between NATO and Russia, Russia remarked, and we know who the aggressor is. The German foreign minister Boris Betray-us was caught out in a remark when he remarked that there's a growing tension with the possibility of a NATO-Russia war by 29, and the Russians hit back. There is no doubt who the aggressor is. She's spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry. After issuing statements about Ukraine's attempt to hijack a Russian jet was a part of a plot to drag NATO into full-power conflict. And at the same time, while the Russian Foreign Ministry and Russian security services were warning the West about false flags, a few hours later, a event happens in Poland, one of many in the last 2 years, to try and drag us into war. Remember the drones? There were drones, I tell you, drones all over Poland. Poor drones in the sky. Turned out to be one drone flown by a Ukrainian 21-year-old who was living with a 17-year-old girl who was illegally in the country. He was detained and released later. Wasn't even charged for his obvious... Never questioned about how old the girl was when she came to live with him and how long she lived there or anything like that. This is the problem in the world. The left keeps giving themselves free passes and then rubbing your nose in it, and half the right just look at their shoes. Just look straight down. Your vote matters. Yet so many of you... it's incredible. Imagine if 100% there was 100% turnout in the American election. Ron DeSantis said it yesterday. If all the people who left New York in the last 2 years voted against Adams and voted against Mondami wouldn't have won. What's her name wouldn't have won. The problem isn't who wins the elections, it's how many people don't vote in the elections and then flee after they don't get the result they want. Because it's not just Republicans who leave blue states. The hardcore, right? Often you find it's the Liberals who leave. And they go to Texas and Florida and say, we got to vote to turn Florida blue. And they said, well, You just come from California complaining about the cost of living. Oh, but that, it's like dealing with. Look, they are selfish children. All right, the left are selfish. They're immature. They embrace their emotions. They think they're entitled to everything. They want the benefits of a low cost society, but at the same time they want high wages. You can't have both. You can't have cheap labour and low prices and high profits. Recently, there was an investigation into the alleged price gouging in Canada. Turned out that some of these that the government was collecting more tax in sales tax than the company made in profits. Because the government doesn't have because the government's are so greedy in Canada. But the greedy people just stand there with their hands out. They don't care. They'll complain about the high cost of living, but then they want their $800 check, and then they'll go away and just want more. It's just selfish. They're just complaining for complaining's sake. They don't actually vote against the problem because they are the problem, but they don't want the problems to go away. So they constantly complain to drown you out. So you have to be vocal. You have to share. You have to like videos. You have to subscribe to videos. You have to get them out there. Or the left will just keep bombarding you with their phony botted accounts and just constantly pump out propaganda that will march us into war. Don't believe me? Look up propaganda in World War I. Look up propaganda in World War II. They propagandized into war. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support the channel in a number of ways. Not just by a like, not just by a share, not just by a subscribe. But none of those cost you money. But if you'd like to go the extra mile and financially support me, you can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Please and thank you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.